Hi, everyone, everywhere. I've got chocolate, and I think Fluffy is going to come and jump up too. But I wanted you to see this big guy. He has gotten fluffier and fluffier, and his coat is better and better, and he hasn't had to have a lion cut to get snarls out. And I hope that all of you who talk to me about the animals that you love in the world, and so many of you volunteer for animal rescue and trying to help animals on this planet. It makes me feel good that there's so many of you in the Earthfiles audience who are trying to help our fellow creatures. I think of them as furry souls. I love them so much. And I've got also some really good news today. At Earthfiles, the YouTube channel, it broke through 188,000 subscribers today. I thank you, everyone, everywhere around this planet. And November 3rd today, at the climate talks in Glasgow, Scotland, global leaders from more than 100 countries, including Brazil, China, Russia, and the United States, all together on this. They agreed to end deforestation by the end of this decade in 2030. We need that so badly. Land clearing by burning forests is a major source of carbon dioxide buildup in the Earth's atmosphere. And as that blanket of CO2 builds up around the Earth, it keeps warming up. Here is an aerial photograph of burned down forest on the right next to a palm oil plantation in southern Kalimantan, that is in the province in Indonesia. This photo was 2 years ago in 2019. The World Resource Institute calculates, quote, if tropical deforestation were a country, it would rank third in carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, only behind China and the United States of America, close quote, by the World Resources Institute. The burning of Brazil's rainforest, also known as the lungs of the earth, now emits more CO2 than its trees and plants absorb from the atmosphere. So behind the new Glasgow Agreement is the bottom line question: can the whole world agree to keep developing without deforestation? The New York Times points out that, quote, the United States and Europe grew wealthy in part by cutting down their forests generations ago. But now, with the world facing the climate crisis and biodiversity loss, they need to persuade developing countries to not follow in their footsteps and not burn up the forests, close quote. For the past month, headlines about mysterious, loud, and unexplained booms have persisted from the Northeast to Northwest to Arizona and other places. Now comes this headline from the Lake County Journal, quote, what caused the loud boom heard Friday, October 29th in Lake County? It's just a big mystery. The loud boom was heard in Grace Lake, Illinois, 48 miles northwest of Chicago near Lake Michigan. The Lake County Journal reports, quote, about 3:30 p.m. Central on Friday, October 29th, 2021, emergency dispatch centers began getting records of what sounded like a large explosion. Resident Bob Blamuser told the Journal, quote, it sounded like a bomb going off or like somebody dropped a bowling ball next to me. At the same time, my chair shook, close quote. Some social media posters said their homes shook and asked if a home or business had exploded. Was it an earthquake, a sonic boom? Some viewers asked if persistent booms could be simulated to deep underground military bases known as DUMBs. Even Lake County Sheriff's deputies heard and reported, quote, one big boom or explosion, close quote. But no one has found any explosion evidence. And just like all the other boom investigations the past month, USGS geophysicists said there was no seismic data of an earthquake, and that northern Illinois is not seismically active now, and no aircraft were reported breaking the sound barrier. Lake County Deputy Sheriff Michael Nudie, who heard one big boom and searched for an explosion in Grays Lake, said, quote, "I would love to know what it was. It's driving me nuts," close quote. Yesterday, November 2nd, 2021, Earthfiles viewers Jesse and Maria Medina emailed me, quote, "My wife and I are avid listeners of your weekly program. Thank you very much. We often discuss the subject matter of your programs, and we are from Chicago, and recently we heard about a Lake County boom and immediately looked at each other because we already knew about booms due to listening to your show. This is in nearby Lake County, which is north of Cook County and Chicago. Booms have been so loud and prevalent and have made the regular rounds of news here in Chicago too," close quote. I want to thank you, Jesse and Maria, and all of you who keep me posted on mystery booms where you live and other high strangeness. At my Earthfiles News website, you can go back to January of 2011 onward up to the present, and you will find dozens and dozens of news reports about strange, unexplained, loud booms, metallic scrapings, collision sounds, and trumpet sounds from not only the United States, but from around the world. It has been 10 years of a persistent phenomenon that has never been explained, and no comment from Homeland Security. 42 years ago, on November 9th, 1979, a forestry worker named Robert Taylor was in the Detchmont Moss Woods in Livingston, Scotland, when he encountered high strangeness and ended up on the front page of the Livingston Post under headlines, quote, "My Brush with Aliens," close quote, where he holds up a sketch of the UFO that came close to him. Now here is a close-up of his 1979 sketch. He told reporters that a flying dome came toward him. He estimated it was 7 yards or 21 feet in diameter and hovered above a Detchmont forest clearing where Robert Taylor was walking with his dog back in 1979. He said the object was, quote, "a dark metallic material with a rough texture like sandpaper that had an outer rim set with small propellers," which almost seems like a joke from the UFO pilots to Earth humans and airplanes. Then came a foul odor from the craft that Taylor said was like burning brakes, and then he saw 2 smaller spheres with several narrow spikes extending from their surfaces. He said, quote, "The spheres rolled toward me," and he compared them to underwater sea mines used by the military. Robert Taylor remembered being grabbed on either side of his legs before he passed out, and when he woke back up, his watch showed 20 minutes had elapsed. Robert Taylor's wife reported that he arrived home on foot because his truck in Detchmont Woods would not start. She said he was disheveled and muddy with torn clothing and ripped trousers. His wife called the police, and a doctor also visited to treat him for skin grazes to his chin and legs. Police accompanied Taylor to the site, where he claimed he received his injuries. They found ladder-shaped marks pressed in the ground, where Taylor said he saw the large spherical object, and other marks that Taylor said were made by the smaller objects that looked like underwater sea mines the military use. Police recorded the matter as a criminal assault. Now, jump from that 1979 mystery to today, and last month on the weekend night of October 9th to 10th, 2021. Another Scotland resident says some kind of craft appeared over her car. 64-year-old Trish Blair, who has described seeing many UFOs in her life, led a documentary crew from a Dutch TV company out to the Robert Taylor Detchmont Forest site for a night watch. looking for UFOs and things that move in the dark. I talked to her by phone this week, and she told me that she left her dash cam camera on during the night watch, aimed up to the sky from her car. Nothing dramatic happened during the night watch itself, but when she got home, she looked at her car's dash cam recording. And the following is a short segment that was in darkness, suddenly comes to light, and a strange infrared image in green that we have looped 6 times for you to see. Here is a still frame that I brightened from the short video that shows the green infrared color and odd structure. Trish Blair lives in Edinburgh, Scotland, and came to the Detchmont Woods to connect the Dutch TV crew to the historic sites linked to Robert Taylor and the UFOs he had encountered. Ironically, no one saw a craft during the night watch, but Trish reports they did encounter an odd camphor smell. Remember, Robert Taylor said that it smelled like burning brakes when he was approached by those 3 UFOs. And it was only when Trish Blair returned to her home and watched her dash cam video with the TV crew that she discovered the surprising green frames. She said, quote, "I knew straight away it was the underneath of a craft you are looking up into. The door is underneath there. The door would open and take whatever into the craft," close quote. I told Trish that I have seen hundreds of alleged UFO images and have never seen such a structure on the bottom of any of them. Usually, all craft are sort of smooth on the bottom unless it's the big triangles like the Belgium ones with lights at 3 corners. But I have never seen such a structure as this one on the bottom of other UFO craft. Trish says that she personally has seen such craft with these bottom structures before and speculates that the UFO was invisible and was observing the TV crew's night watch, and her dash cam happened to catch this moment of light from something that was set off while the crew and she were getting ready to go to her house. Now, recently, I received an email that read, quote, "Hello, Linda. I have been listening for years to you since your days of reporting with Art Bell. May he rest in peace. I live in the Pacific Northwest in an apartment in town, not out in the countryside. Something visited me the morning of March 14th to 15th, 2021, this year. It stood in my bedroom doorway and watched me for hours throughout the night. Then, a few days later, a small gray appeared along with some latent memories, meaning some latent memories came into his mind related to both of these events. I would like help researching this if possible, but I don't feel comfortable calling into broadcasts. I have had a military career and want to remain anonymous. If possible, I would like to talk with you or someone about what has happened, and perhaps you can recommend who could help me." I contacted him and asked to see his DD-214 military service record. He has served in the U.S. Army in several different missions, including as a sniper with a top secret clearance in Iraq. He also received many Army awards and commendations. His military assignments required various non-disclosure agreements, most of which have expired by now. But I promised him complete anonymity and only using the name John Doe. I have also altered the frequency of his voice after he gave me permission to record his extraordinary experiences that occurred 7 months ago in March 14 to 15 of 2021. Now he thinks that when he was a child, he had lots of nosebleeds, missing time, received telepathic thoughts from something that he could not see, and that what has happened at age 55 now in 2021 is directly connected to his strange youth. Here now is voice-altered John Doe, to be listened to more than watched, like my radio broadcasts with Art Bell in the 1990s.
Waking up in bed from a sound sleep, immediately saw something standing in my doorway, filled half the doorway. I had to tilt my head up to look down at it, down towards my feet. My feet are facing the door. The door is about 10 feet away from my pillow. Whatever that is, it's about 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall, and it's got a huge head. Its head is much larger than it should be for its body. Its arms and legs are small and skinny, smaller than it should be for something with a head that large. It had eyes that were bigger than they should be for that head. They were squarish with rounded off corners. I couldn't physically move. I couldn't move my arms, my legs, my body, but I could lift my head and look down. My eyes could move down and my head could move slightly upward, only slightly. And I stared at it. What the fuck is that? What is it doing in my bedroom? I was startled, but I wasn't frightened, and I didn't know why. I should be terrified. Someone's in my house, have an intruder. But I was calm, and I just fell back asleep. I was slightly happy, which was odd, really odd that I felt slightly happy seeing the thing, but being totally confused. And I noticed the light around it was very dark, very dim. It was only lit up by some LEDs off the router, just a few feet off to the right. My home's router is on the table not far. It's got 5 lights that blink on and off. When your eyes adjust to nighttime, when you're trying to go to sleep, eventually your eyes will be able to see shadows and colors or a bit of light. I could see the light behind it, and I could see the light reflecting off its left side, the right side, as I could see it, and that's how I could tell the first time I could see the eye, and I could see the body shape. I woke up again a few hours later because it was much lighter. I could tell there was light coming in from mountains in the distance at 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. Even with curtains closed, quite a bit of light comes in. I could see more details. I could see both eyes. I could see both arms and legs and light behind him clearly, or her. I don't know if it was a him or her or neither. But it had sort of a golden glow, dim, sort of like, it was hard to describe the color. It was gold and burnt red, like maybe a reddish brown reflection and gold that was coming from the sunlight that was coming in off the balcony window. And then I looked at it and I smiled. I could lift my head a bit more this time, and it was still in the doorway. And I knew by the amount of light behind it that some amount of time had passed since it first appeared.
And you mean it's still there in the same exact position in the doorway, exactly like it had been the first time you woke up?
Like it hadn't moved. Why aren't I terrified? Why aren't I yelling? I have a pistol in a safe under my bed. Why didn't I jump up like a soldier should do and go get my pistol and defend my home? Why did I feel happy that I could see the thing there and just look at it? I could tell it was looking at me, but I couldn't see any movement at all. I could move only my head a little bit, but a little bit more than before. And I smiled slightly, and I fell back asleep. I opened my eyes again. I was awake. It was there. This time I could see more color. I could see a lot more gold and reddish brown. I could see more details, and I could see a necklace around its neck this time that I couldn't make out before. This thing had large stones, or what appeared to me had large shapes around it. Unusually large for any human wearing a necklace, what looked like 2 or 3 inch long stones on its necklace around its neck. I looked up at it. I saw it again. It hadn't moved. I hadn't moved. But for some reason, I wasn't upset or shocked. I was happy. I raised my right arm slightly, and I pointed at it. And as I pointed at it, the necklace lit up on its left shoulder, the right side as I could see it, bright pink, 1 stone. And I pointed the next stone, and I pointed the 4th one, lit up bright pink, and there was a stone in the middle hanging down center. and it was a little slightly larger than the others, and it lit up. And on my finger went around the other side of the chest, and the other three stones lit up, and I smiled. The stones lit up, not super bright, but bright enough to see that they were stones of some sort.
And you're saying that you were seeing each of these 3 to 4 inch long stones light up pink as you looked at each one, like your consciousness is interacting with this being, and the being is somehow reacting to your attention and consciousness by having each of these stones light up.
Yes. And I thought about it the next day. I didn't sleep for a couple days afterwards. And I thought, was I making those stones light up? Because as my finger pointed at each stone in succession, they each lit up brightly around its neck. The creature or being or whatever it was didn't move, but its necklace lit up, and each stone lit up as my finger would point to it. It appeared to be 2 to 3 inch long stones, not quite oval, but with little points on the ends. Mm-hmm. The one down in the center was slightly larger than the others.
And it sounds like that the necklace itself, as it appeared to you, is actually some kind of technology.
Yeah, I do remember that I didn't see anything connecting the stones. I saw each individual stone there, and there should have been, like, in human terms, we would have a gold chain or a silver chain or something holding them all together. And they were in that shape, as in a choker or a chain would have something suspended with stones in it. But these were just stones that were there. The only thing I can think of is relating to a vivid dream I had within 2 weeks later, where it looked like I was standing right next to the creature, and I could look down and see that it might have been wearing a suit that had a deep purplish color beneath the other colors. And I was actually a few inches away from it at this point. This is within 2 weeks. I had this vivid dream that this thing was 2 to 3 inches away from my chest, and I was looking down at its head, and I could see deep purple in these shapes. This thing was covered in this hexagonal shape, like the shape of a beehive, and it almost looked like a fabric.
Do you mean that you, in the dream, you're very close to the being that you saw from a distance in the 3 times you woke up, but now it's later on and you're having what you think is a vivid dream? What exactly are you seeing that has, like we would think of bees, 6-sided?
6-sided. It looked like a fabric where each panel of the fabric had 6 sides and it was sewn together. So the hexagonal shapes on this thing's outfit or this thing's skin, I don't know if it was an outfit or skin, but thinking if that stone necklace didn't have anything connecting it, maybe these stones were attached to whatever it was wearing. But these shapes, the edges of the 6 sides of the shape stuck up slightly all over it.
In the dream, now closer, you are about 6 feet tall.
Yep.
And you are looking down at some kind of a being that is about 4 feet, so 2 feet below you. Are you saying now that you could see over the surface of the head, the face, what would be hexagons like beeswax?
Yes, I said beeswax to give the idea of 6-sided shape. It didn't look waxy. It looked more like a cross between a cloth and metallic fiber, and it had a goldish, purplish hue up close. But I don't remember that from the first 3 times I woke up. I was in bed the entire time. It never moved from the doorway, and I never moved from the bed. This is within 2 weeks I had this waking dream. It's probably a foot and a half below my face. And I'm looking down, I can see the top of its head and the front of its face, and I can see the round, nearly black eyes, but not quite black. They might not have been eyes. Looking that close at it, that could have been a helmet, but those eyes were huge, covered most of the face, the frontal part of what would be the head. They were squared off with rounded edges.
Is it fair to say that this being may have had skin or a covering that was a solid pattern, like a beehive of 6-sided patterns?
Yes, there was definitely a 6-sided pattern on this thing up close. But when I was lying in bed, I couldn't see that detail.
Mm-hmm. And did you get any telepathic communication in which you either get movies in your mind's eye, or you get images, or you get symbols?
No. The next day, I couldn't sleep for 2 days. I was trying to think of, did I hear anything? Was I cold anything? Is there any communication? And I was dumbstruck. There was nothing. I couldn't recall. I couldn't think of anything. All I could remember is the being itself. 4 days later, there was a gray in my bedroom up on the wall.
Now, what do you mean a few days later there was a gray on your wall?
3 or 4 days later, a similar occurrence where I wake up in the night, a bit startled but not frightened. I tilt my head to my right, up near the ceiling, but on the side wall was your typical gray with narrow slanted eyes. And it turned its head to the right. It was on its hands and knees, but on a sidewall, which sort of freaked me out because it's not gravitationally possible for gray to be up there.
Do you mean that you are looking up at the ceiling and that you are seeing some kind of a thin gray creature with the idea that maybe it has suction cups on its fingers or hands and is holding itself up on the ceiling?
I couldn't tell you. It didn't look like it was hanging by its hands and knees. It looked like gravity didn't affect it. I've jumped from aircraft. I've climbed up and down mountainsides. This wasn't suspended by its hands. It was just sitting there on its hands and knees.
At the ceiling, as if no gravity was affecting it.
Yes, on the sidewall, not the ceiling, but at the ceiling level, meaning its left shoulder was nearly touching the ceiling. Its head was only inches from the ceiling. But it was crouched on my sidewall above my head, which is probably 2.5, 3 feet to my right, but above me. And when I looked at it, it turned its head to the right and its eyes squinted. Then I passed out. That time, when I woke up frightened.
And what is the difference between this frightening entity on the sidewall with its shoulder touching the ceiling versus the being that you saw in your doorway 4 nights before that had the hexagonal skin? What is the difference between these two?
I don't know. That's why I called you. I didn't feel frightened of the one in the doorway at all. I felt actually slightly elated that it was standing there, and I don't know why I would feel elated. Being an American soldier, having experienced things of people trying to break in when I lived in California, I would be immediately defending myself in my apartment. To let you know, my apartment, I keep a stick of wood on a sliding door in the back on the patio, and I have 3 locks on the front door, and I also put my army boots in front of the front door so I can tell if anyone's tried the locks and tried to push the door in. I have a camera in the living room that saw nothing, a little Amazon camera. But if the thing was standing right where it would have been standing and it didn't move, it wouldn't set off the motion detect on the camera. The grating on my wall just didn't seem right. It was above me. I felt vulnerable and shocked, and it turned its head and squinted at me, and I passed out when it squinted at me. I don't know if it forced me back to sleep, but that's the only thing I can think of. The one in the doorway, I never saw move, but I didn't see it twitch.
And the one on the wall near the ceiling, you felt fear.
I did.
And this happened March 14th to the 15th of 2021, so months ago.
Yes.
In these months, since we'll call it physical appearances to your mind, eye in your bedroom, have you had any vivid dreams about either of these entities or anything else that would seem to be like some intelligence was trying to explain to you what was happening?
No, not that I recall.
Have you ever had a vivid dream in your life in which either of these beings seem to have been in another vivid dream?
No, not these 2 specific beings. I've never seen a gray before in my life, and I've never seen anything that looked like that thing in my doorway. The thing on the wall was crouched or kneeling. It was on its hands and its knees.
Have you ever had a vivid dream about an entity or entities that you thought were not Homo sapien sapien human?
Yes. I believe I told you a story when I was deployed to Iraq the first time in 04-05. 3 beings appeared to me a couple of nights in a row in an ancient building on one of the palace grounds. They appeared to me as carpets, and I didn't get to see it at the time, but I did see a bit of a visual show. Each one of them seemed to be extremely excited that I had showed up in their part of the world, that I was there. Somehow they let me know this. I didn't hear anything verbally, I just felt it, but then I could see visually. These carpets were spinning as a film would spin on a projector, and that spinning was showing me, or trying to show me, a story.
What was the story ingredients that they were trying to show you in Iraq?
I can't recall that. I should have contacted you back then to try and help me.
Well, this series of vivid experiences in the matter world that you had March 14th to 15th, 2021, and a background when you were a child of having missing time and the telepathic communications from something you didn't see. Today, do you connect your childhood mysterious experiences with what has happened this year?
I don't know. That's entirely possible. It could be, might be related. It's possible the being that appeared in my doorway made me feel comfortable because I experienced its presence before. Sort of a feeling I had, but I can't recall any visual or audio, even telepathic communication from it, other than me pointing at it the third time I awoke and lighting its necklace stones on, lighting them up as I pointed around at them. But the creepy little gray thing freaked me out. That I wanted to react to. Whatever it wasn't right. It turned its head and squinted at me. Only thing I could describe is somebody was angry at you. Somebody in school, a parent or a teacher, or, in the military. Someone knew or saw something you were doing wrong and squinted at you angrily before they said something. That thing squinted at me in this manner, and then I passed out, or I blacked out again. I went back to sleep again, whatever you want to call it. And I have troubled over this event for months now before I decided to reach out to somebody. I have heard you many times on Art Bell dealing with this type of thing. I thought I could reach out to you maybe.
Right, and I am especially curious about the possible link between your missing time episodes that you do remember as a child and then being an adult later in life, having had military experience in Iraq. Are you being visited by other beings at this particular juncture because we are in a year and a decade in which it seems that we are headed toward governments finally telling more information about UFO UAPs, and that there may be some new interface between beings and humans in a more open way?
Yes.
I am fascinated by John Doe's description of the hexagonal patterns in skin or a uniform or whatever it is of the non-human being with the square head that did not frighten him like the smaller pointed chin gray. And I did a search in Google, and I searched for possibly reptiles that might have some kind of hexagonal pattern. And it was amazing how many lizards and snakes came up on Earth that might have hexagonal type patterns in their scales, making me wonder, was there some, I guess I want to say, genetic line between the square-faced being that did not scare John Doe, had the big eyes, and had what appeared to be the hexagonal patterns in what he thought was either skin or some kind of a covering that might even be metal. And I wondered if any of you, whether you're mathematicians or scientists or you're people in the abduction syndrome who have had any exposure to some kind of a hexagonal pattern covering a non-human, please email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com, and I'm going to do some more independent research about this issue of hexagonal patterns in Earth reptiles. And I would appreciate if any of you who have served in the military and who have more information about why there might be a pointed chin gray being and the square-faced with the hexagonal patterns. Why would they show up to one person who's had quite many pieces of military history in his life? And does anybody know for sure what I have been told, that the pointed chin grays are the ones that are hostile to humans, where the pear-shaped head ebens are supposed to be more kind and gentle and helping humans. It is a confusion of types and agendas that has persisted always and continues to. But the experiences of John Doe, given the fact that I know his childhood, I know some of the many, many experiences that he had as a child, and I'm especially interested in the telepathic thoughts that would come, and he knew as a child it wasn't him thinking, it was something putting thoughts. And that perhaps there is an insertion, a monitoring of certain humans from early childhood all the way. And in this case, maybe there is a reason why in 2021, in a planet that feels so unstable, socially, politically, militarily, and every other way, that whatever John Doe's relationship is, that he would feel some kind of happiness seeing the hexagonal, patterned, square-headed, larger being, but did not like and was afraid of. Here's a man who's had all kinds of highly classified and dangerous sniper work, but he was feeling real fear in the presence of the strange pointed chin, gray, that seemed to be suspended up with one of its shoulders touching the ceiling, as he said, as if it was in a zone of neutralized gravity or something that might have been produced by a technology. So feedback from those of you who may have been exposed to anything like what he has been talking about, I would love to hear. And my direct email is earthfiles@earthfiles.com, but Ian helps me so much with all of your wonderful comments in the chat. And so either way, it ends up getting to me. And I want to thank all of you again that we've gone to 188,000 subscribers. And we'll have to figure out, what do we do when we hit 200,000? What kind of celebration should we have? I welcome your input. And now, Ian, what have you got lined up in comments and questions?
Well, first of all, Linda, I'd like to join the viewers in congratulating you on 188,000 subscribers. And I'd also like to remind everybody, please like and subscribe and help us to boost the numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got some super chats here. It's quite a list today. We've got Moonbird, Barry Marlowe, Mary Kelly, Rebecca Cole, Shannara, who's in New Zealand, Andrea Martin, Courtney C, Vegan Tattoo, Brenda Doyle, Stacey Luplo, Tina Howes, and Whisper of Love.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone, everywhere. And your monikers are fascinating to hear. You're a creative crowd. Thank you.
I'd just like to say we've had people viewing and commenting in the chat from all over the United States, UK and Canada, but from all parts of the United States, from Alaska to Texas, where Shawnette said is, to Hawaii. We've also had Belize and Hawaii checking in with all. Well, yep, those are the main countries.
All right.
Tuning in tonight.
And to remind everybody that over time we have been in communication from about 150 countries, right?
That's right, in total. And I'd just like to say as well that Australia is the country where the number of viewers is the 4th highest at the moment. Fantastic.
All right, on to your questions and comments, and I hope you will let me know if you found this particular interview with somebody from a rather heavy-duty military background describing this. Is it a theatrical production? Is it something that is an insight into what's going on in the earth? Why did John Doe have the appearance of something that frightened him and was clearly, to his description, a gray that could suspend itself up to the ceiling, a shoulder and be suspended, while the other was maybe conditioning by making sure that it would use sleep, coming in and out of sleep and never moving, as some kind of an educational getting him used to, I am not hurting you. What was all of that over a period of time that that being did not move at all? How strange and extraordinary that is too. So I am open in to whatever questions and comments we have.
Here's the first question. It's from Greg, and he says, Linda, what ways and or devices do you think ETs could use to paralyze humans that they abduct?
I think the answer is in two categories. I think that we are dealing with some non-humans who have the ability of just mind over matter. It's been described to me that the tall whites or the tall pales that do have a treaty with the United States government do have an underground, we'll say, territory in Nevada, under the Rachel Area 51 and that area. That Charles Hall, who wrote the books about his own military experience with the tall whites at Area 51 a few decades ago, when I asked him some questions at a conference, one of the things that I always have wondered about is he said that there was one incident where they had been given a lot of training about the rules to make sure that when they were around the tall whites, who are supposed to be allies, extremely intelligent, that has been stressed to me over and over, much taller than humans normally, that they exist in the 6 to 7.5 foot range, that the way he put it, we were warned, meaning he was in military security, and that military security working in the area where the tall whites allegedly have territory in the Area 51, Nevada, S4, Rachel, that area, underground, that they were warned, if you see the tall whites or pales with any of their young, go away, back up, get out of the picture. And that seemed to be what he stressed as one of the things that the tall whites could mind over matter, stare at a human and disable them, paralyze them, even kill them. Mind over matter, that it was stressed that technology was not needed. However, in other cases where there have been other abduction descriptions, whether it was grays, whether it was blondes, whether it was reptilians, or a variety, you often hear about either a rod or some kind of thin tube or structure that can have light come out of an end, can be used in surgery, and I have been told it can also be a totally paralyzing, that they know how to completely paralyze humans. And that often, when you're dealing with paralysis, it's as he described, that people will wake, they cannot move anything. And then they realize in their effort trying to get up that their eyelids can open and they can see shadowy in the dark once their eyes are adjusted, but they can't move anything else. And then as they keep struggling with whatever is the dynamics, if there's telepathy and images going through their mind and whatever it is, that they will find that the more they struggle, that they might be able to come up a little bit, exactly as the way he described it. But they are not given full body release in relationship to being with the being. And the John Doe, he's curious. When I ask him, he's asking this of himself. Could it be that his childhood, he had either bleed through memories from another life, could be one interpretation, or that he was a hybrid or was in a genetic program and came into a particular human family situation in which the non-humans kept in touch through images in dreams, through a variety of childhood issues that he had, which included missing time. And it included, he said, that even when he was in military duty, that he would have missing time. And it really bothered him because people in the military must be glued to their 24-hour clock and whatever the schedules are. But he still was able to perform very well. It's just that, as he would say, something has been coming in and out and in and out of his human existence for reasons that he does not understand, and that one of the things that he may eventually try to do, as some people do, is to go with a hypnotherapist into deep hypnosis to try to penetrate what was happening when he was a child, and would that childhood, all the childhood trauma, have something to do with what was happening, both the presentation of 3 completely different aliens in Iraq, the ones that he kept comparing to a rolled up carpet, which may or may not relate to the insectoids. I have been told that there are insects, some are dangerous and some maybe not, but there is something about a rounded torso that might have appeared to him if it was spinning with images coming in his head. It may have been something that was to put information in his mind, but was not supposed to be clear communication at that moment in Iraq. I know we're always left with more questions, but I think that I am seeing that more people with military backgrounds are coming forward to at least ask for help. And as we concluded in the interview, what happened just a few months ago in March of this year may be one of the many signals that I feel is happening in the abduction category and people in military, that something seems to be getting, maybe you could say, a little closer, that it's doing demonstrations, that the patterns of people talking about things they're seeing in the sky. Maybe there is some kind of a transition that is ongoing to where eventually all of the sort of sporadic and not clear presentations by the non-humans will turn into a handshake and a real introduction. I'm also very curious if anybody in the audience tonight recognizes anything in that infrared image. I personally have never seen an image that looks like that on the bottom of a craft. But I'm open to being educated by anyone who might have some hard information. And further, why are we seeing blackness, and then it looks as if a light goes like this, as if it's the dash cam camera, it's like there's an arc of a move of the light like this past whatever this is. And the dash cam camera should remain static. Whatever that is, that what appears to be a motion like this, how did it happen and why? So we're into this area of what can the non-humans with their very advanced technologies that can neutralize gravity. Why did that light come on for that very short moment in the dash cam camera that was pointed up because Trish wanted to see if it would catch anything during the night watch, and that would it implies, it doesn't mean that something couldn't turn over, but it implies that it's the bottom of something. But I've just never seen anything like it. So I would love to know. You can communicate to me privately through proton mail, hard mail, FedEx, if you have some hard science or military information. I would sure like to know more about what we saw briefly. And now, Ian, what about another question?
Well, we've had some fascinating comments from viewers who are reporting their own UFO sightings and also sightings with other people that they know. Jora 2 says, my friend had 37 minutes missing time about 6 months ago, him and his brother, and they both found a 2.7 millimeter object inside them. He says their truck was even moved, but both just got back from the doctor and have a 2.7 millimeter object. They thought it was cancer in Arizona. About 3 months before that, he also reports seeing a shadow tentacle creature, and then he goes on to say, he doesn't remember anything, but his brother remembers everything, and says the creature took his soul out and showed him how we are being harvested or how souls are being collected.
Okay, many things. One, where was the 2 millimeter? The implication is an implant. What part of the body in the two brothers?
I've asked him to email us, and he says he's emailed us already. So we'll look out for that and get more information as it comes through.
And the part on the soul, for those of you who have been with me at the Earthfiles YouTube channel since we began in 2017, in those earlier days, one night, I told about what had happened to me in Boston, having given birth on March 25th, 1974 to my daughter, Laura, and that I was under tremendous stress of moving from Los Angeles to Boston because my husband was going to go to Harvard to get another degree. And we decided that even though it was rough, just having had a new baby and being a producer at KNBC, I already got a job with WCVB to do all their medical programming. So we decided that I would go ahead and with the baby, with my mother, in a car, breastfeeding, to Boston. I was going to look for a house to buy and starting my new job producing medical programming at WCVB. It was a full plate. And somehow, back then, in 1974, we were able to do everything that we set our minds to do, as difficult as it was. Whether or not all of that going on at the same time led to this. One night, I remember I was on my stomach asleep. When I woke up, my eyes opened, but I could not move. I could not talk. I could see my husband just a couple of feet away. And I remember the energy that I was trying to run through my body to explode whatever this paralysis was. And I was trying so hard that it seems to me that I was even feeling like I ached when a thought voice, like John Doe has described and so many others, it's a thought voice. You know it's not you. You know the difference between your own internal consciousness and when these thought voices come in. And this thought voice said, move your little finger. So it gave me another goal. I could see my hand vaguely, and I could see my little finger, and I started concentrating with every ounce of energy I could bring, and it suddenly moved, maybe a quarter of an inch. But when it moved a quarter of an inch, it was like I had been bound up in some kind of straitjacket, meaning that something that would be tight. It felt like that, and then suddenly, moving my finger, it was like it was released, this horrible, horrible paralysis, tightness. And I swung back up onto the pillow. And as I swung up, we were in a house in the historic area in Boston that had very tall ceilings, sort of like this office goes up quite a ways, more than 8-foot ceilings. And there were windows, but it's dark, it's totally dark, but I'm saying there were frame windows and going up in the height of this room. And the door coming into the room, which was about 10 feet from me, 8 or 10 feet, it was bigger because they built bigger rooms in those old historical houses in Boston. And as I looked to my right, it was as if something pulled my head to look to the right. And there, in the entire huge door frame, was this black hulk. There's no other way to describe it. It wasn't like looking at arms and legs and a torso. It was like a black hulk, like the illustration that I used with John Doe of the black thing in the door that had a little bit of a small gray silhouette in it, and then those eyes to the right. It was just that was an illustration used tonight under the subject of, in Wikipedia searches and others, paralysis at night, dark shadows, shadow people. That's where I found enough pieces to make that illustration. And so, as I saw this big hulk, I remember being struck by a terrible fear. And I'm not a person who's lived my life with much fear, but this was a terrible fear. It was all in, like going to your core and everything. And when I went to move, I wanted to move. I wanted to get out. I think I wanted to fight it. I think I wanted to jump into the room and fight whatever this was. My baby was in a bassinet and about 20 feet around. So I was really, I have to do something. I can't wake my husband. I've got to do something. And as I was moving in my mind in that way, it started to move. The hulk in the doorway started to move. And it was a slow, steady coming, and my fear got greater and greater, and then it was as if I'm got my back on the pillow, but it is not like I am free. I'm not free to move. It's a different kind of paralysis when this beautiful, huge, blazing white cross just popped in right at the foot of the bed. And it was glorious, and the thought voice came in and said simply, say the Lord's Prayer over and over and do not stop. And I understood that I was to say it out loud. And so, staring at the cross, knowing that the black hulk is coming up, I began, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I kept doing the Lord's Prayer. And then I became aware that the big hulk was right at the side of the bed. It had gotten all the way. And at that moment, it was as if something in that beautiful blazing white cross, floor to ceiling, I either got a thought voice or something. And I felt like again I was getting out of something that was trying to bind me. And all of a sudden, there was just like warm, moist air came running against my face as if it were blowing across the bed. And this entire black hulk, it just dissipated, literally dissipated. Didn't move away. It was as if it were deconstructed into just a fade out. And the blazing white cross was still there. And then it kind of went into itself. And then it just, in a burst of light, and I fell back against the pillow and realized that my nightgown was completely drenched. I didn't know that I was perspiring, but I was completely drenched and had that feeling when it's cold and you go back against a pillow. And it was in October, it was fall. And when my back hit the pillow and the black hulk is gone and the blazing white cross has just kind of enfolded on itself, the third thought voice came. I wrote it down. I have it in a notebook. God won. You will never have to fight for your soul ever again. And after that, all of the stress, all of the life is impossible, I can't keep all 20 plates going, just seemed to melt away. That day, I told my husband, that day, what happened. He didn't know what to think. And everything from that moment on, I cut my hair, I got a bicycle, I started riding a bicycle to the television station where I worked, WCVB in Needham, and our house was only 10 minutes away. And I think of that as an experience that has left me with a strong conviction that our souls are the infinite survival of our many different lives. And that even if you hear words, as Ian was reading, that there could be an alien goal, not everyone for sure, but there might be some who look at Homo sapiens sapien, this baby species that ends up with very strong souls that will recycle through infinity. And they want them. But I am convinced, I really am convinced, and I've just given you my own personal experience why. If you stay in touch with that inner, I think of it as my soul. And your life, when things are rough, you connect to it. It has a certain energy. I know what it feels like. And it will pull you through so many things, just like what happened in Boston. And I say these words to you tonight, even though it is a repeat of something that I told you back 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's important. A lot of people are seemingly pushing frightening scenarios with maybe to sell something about the idea that the non-human world out here in this universe wants our souls, some might, and that they have the ability to take our souls. That probably is implied by my own experience. God won. You will never have to fight for your soul again. But I was always left with a feeling, and feel it even stronger today. If you can connect to what you feel is your soul core, you will never, never have to worry about any of these scenarios. And that part of maybe where we're headed, we've got to meet, we've got to be introduced to, we've got to see the non-humans that are out at Procyon A and B and Sirius and Aldebaran and on and on and on. This universe is full of consciousness, and we need to see it so that it becomes more of part of Earth that humans can begin to relate to. And then we might find that we will know allies, and that they will be strong allies, and that the entire universe, just like Earth, is not necessarily good, not necessarily all bad, some neutral, that Lynn Buchanan remote viewing, a bell-shaped curve of agendas. But because we are such babies, and we are, Homo sapiens sapien, Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien has only been in the crossfade with Neanderthalensis about 45,000 years ago. I think that there were civilizations from other star systems on this planet. The Anunnaki, I think, were inhabiting like 800,000 to a million years ago or more on the Earth, and that Defense Intelligence Agency analyst that I've shared pieces of content with you guys in December of 1999 said that our government of the United States had proof that 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations had been manipulating genetic material on this planet, harvesting minerals, a whole lot of things for at least 270 million years. Write down 270 over 1 million. And just look at that number, and then go to Homo erectus in South Africa. That is allegedly where the beginning of the standing up primate humanoid began on Earth. And that number doesn't go back more than 2 million years. So from Homo erectus to the various branches genetically, including Denisovans and Neanderthalensis before Cro-Magnon Homo sapiens sapien, you really are talking about only 2 million years for all of that leading up to the present on a planet that is 4.6 billion years old. We are babies. And I guess I felt that it was important to say this tonight, given, Ian, the comment about taking souls. Because I do not think that is common, and I think humans have rare soul strength. Now, I've gone past a little bit, but I am glad that I got to share this with you guys tonight. And we will work our way toward another show where we do more questions, and Brad will do the bell, and I'll answer as shortly as possible. But you can tell me, don't you think that sharing this particular experience on a planet where there is a landscape of so many people who have experienced paralysis and confusion and fear, that if we told each other more about what we have been exposed to, up against, been able to fight and stand on our own 2 feet, it could strengthen everybody else. And we humans, we really need each other's help. So on that note, I'm going to say, I love you guys, fellow humans in this huge, strange universe where we're exploring together on Wednesday nights. I'll see you next week at Earthfiles YouTube channel. Love you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.